Yeah. So how do you get it right? Like we touched a little bit on how not to get it right, how to get it wrong. How do you get tokenomics right? What's your approach here?
Um, so to connect kind of the dots, one of the biggest things I also see is there's people love to optimize their token supply. Like, is it 9 billion? Is it 10 billion? How many emissions issuance per month? How many tokens go to users and so on? So this is a part of tokenomics that's very, very over engineered almost. The demand side of things, much less. And I would say I'm more like a demand side tokenomics, where I look at are there actually any demand drivers for the token? And it's such a fundamental question. And so there is a few principles of tokenomics, and these are usually the utility of the token. Utility is like, as always, it's king, not just in NFTs, but does demand come from? Because like in refi especially, we see super interesting projects um, that, I don't know, there's, for example, I think it's called Single Earth, and they have this merit token. They have a really cool, interesting mechanism how the token reflects like a natural ecosystem. And so it's basically, they call it a nature-based currency, and it's all cool and the idea is great, but then it comes to utility. We look at utility and it's like, okay, people people will use it as a currency in big companies to offset their carbon emissions. And I'm like, you want, like, the whole idea is great, don't get me wrong, love the vision, but companies probably won't just say like, oh yeah, okay, there's a new cryptocurrency, it's nature based, let's just use it, right? So we have in this one a really big disconnect between this super optimized supply, which is really cool and great, and demand drivers.
Mhm.
So getting it right for me is always thinking about why would people buy this token, and for what are they using it. And the second really big thing is about value accrual. So value, in some way, the ecosystem creates value, and your token should capture a tiny little bit of this value. So this can be done through multiple mechanisms, and we don't want to go in there. But the token, in essence, for example, if you sell block space, which most of the layer ones do, right?
Mhm.
If Ethereum usage goes up, the price is reflected in the token. There is a lot of speculation, obviously. We're definitely not at a usage price of $1,000 or sometimes four. But through the mechanisms in place, the Ethereum token captures a bit of the value that's created. And that's such a fundamental question, because it's literally like a um, I don't want to call it a stock, because it doesn't really reflect the value of all the things built on Ethereum, but at least one unit. And this is a difficult one, because like Uniswap is like in DeFi is this amazing decentralized exchange where you can swap tokens and all and much more. But their token, they don't have the fee switch on. They call it the fee switch. So this marketplace doesn't take a cut out of the transactions. So the token, in essence, is just pure speculation and useless,
Hmm.
because the treasury doesn't get funded. And there you have the issue is like, it's not a sound business, and it's going to be a race to the bottom in all these dexes to provide like zero fees or something. So the value capture debate is really a thing about businesses forgot that you have to build sustainable businesses. There needs to be money that you can use for your operations and so on. So nothing goes into this treasury, and therefore, like, the token is not reflected by something in the treasury, which is another mechanism. And the other, what I also wanna emphasize on is like, are rewards aligned with value creation? So if you emit a token, it should go to the creators, to the developers, to the people in the system that create the most value, and not just whales and so on. Like, if a whale has a lot of token and just sits on them and accumulates more and more, and maybe even uses governance to enrich themselves even more, is also a kind of like a a bad sign. So these are like 3 principles I like to follow.
Very cool. That's a lot of value here for the listeners, for the audience.